so I came across this article linking certain Primarchs with certain houses in Game of Thrones. So I'm going to go through this, take a look at their reasoning for why certain Primarchs belong to certain houses. As someone who is pretty knowledgeable about Game of Thrones, A Song of Ice and Fire, and way less knowledgeable about the Primarchs and Warhammer 40k, this should be kinda interesting. First up is Lionel Johnson, and they're saying the Night's Watch. I think it would be easy to look at Lionel Johnson and say off the cuff that he belongs in House Lannister, thanks to the lion motif. However, looking at it more, I think the Night's Watch fits him and his legion really well. And yes, I know they are not technically a house. The Dark Angels and the Lion got their start as a knightly order, traveling into the dark forest of their homeworld to fight monsters and ward the normal humans. That sounds a lot like the Night's Watch ranging into the land beyond the wall to fight the others. You've also got the fact that the Dark Angels originally wore black, just like the Night's Watch. Add to the fact that if the Lion were to come back, he would, in effect, command a bunch of fallen men seeking to atone for past misdeeds, or the past misdeeds of their chapter, and that like to hunt deserters, and it's a nice match. I kinda see that reasoning. Also, the return of the Dark Angels Primarch is kinda like the return of Jon Snow from death, if you think about it. Now they have Fulgrim in House Targaryen. Pride and madness go hand in hand among House Targaryen, which makes them a fitting house for Fulgrim. Not only does he share the silver-white hair of the house, but his pride and arrogance match some of the famous Targaryens. Like House Targaryen, he and his children consider themselves above other men, a hubris that often leads to excess. Considering the House Targaryen association with madness, a history of having deformed children, born with scales, and even trying to transform into a dragon, it's no wonder that Fulgrim, as a demon prince, would take on dragon wings and a serpentine or draconic body. Nor should it surprise us that, like a certain Targaryen, the man who was once a hero turns into a mass murderer. Yeah, like I kinda see the reasoning here, but a lot of this Targaryen stuff is just not true. Like their association with madness, that is a Game of Thrones show only thing, not really in the books. Cersei is the one who says, when a Targaryen is born, the gods flip a coin, referencing the Targaryen madness. That's not in the book. The closest thing to that is Barristan saying something similar to that, but he was really just talking about whether or not they would be a good king, not if they were gonna go crazy. Though there were a couple crazy Targaryens. Aerion Brightflame did try to become a dragon by drinking wildfire, and maybe the Mad King's plan was to become a dragon as King's Landing burnt. We don't really know for sure. Now we have Perturabo in House Arryn. Okay, I had to think about this one a bit, but I think Perturabo is a good fit for House Arryn. As a child, Perturabo was found at the bottom of a mountain that his adopted family lived on top of. Likewise, the seat of House Arryn, the Eyrie, sits atop a mountain. Perturabo was known as the most technically proficient Primarch. He was a great builder. The Arryns are likewise great builders, having built the Eyrie and the other impressive defenses of the Vale. They do not seem to be a particularly religious household, though little mention is made one way or another. Key to the match, however, is the fact that Perturabo is a master of siege warfare, and known for building and defending impregnable fortresses. This is a very House Arryn trait, as the Eyrie is known as the most impregnable castle in the world, and the Vale is guarded by the Blood Gate, against which dozens of armies have dashed themselves to bloody bits. That alone would make this a great fit. I do kind of understand why you would link him to House Arryn, and the only things I really have to say to this are, 1, basically everyone in Westeros is religious, and also it's not the Blood Gate, it's the Bloody Gate, but whatever. Next we have Jaghatai Khan and the Dothraki. Alright, again, I know this isn't technically a house, but come on, I think there is really little to be said. It's pretty obvious why Jaghatai Khan would be one of the Dothraki. Coming from a fantasy pseudo-Mongol Han culture, where else would the Khan end up than with the fantasy pseudo-Mongol Han culture? Khal Jaghatai would be at home on horseback in the Dothraki Sea as he ever was side a jet bike in the Great Crusade. He's even got the long hair part down. This is a match made in heaven. And yeah, you know, I can't really argue with that. I think it does make sense. I don't really think there are any Westerosi houses that would fit this particular Primarch. And then of course, Leman Russ and House Stark. Wolves, winter, ice, feasting, wearing leathers, unnatural psychic connection to wolves. These are just a few things that make Leman Russ and his sons perfect fit for House Stark. I think again this is a pretty clear fit. Leman Russ is the classic northerner, ready to fight but full of honor and a great comrade to have. He's loyal to a fault and all about the wolf pack life. Add to that the wolf connection, which of course can't just be with normal wolves, but has to be with super wolves, and it really fits in. You've also got the fact that, like the Starks, Russ and the Fenrisians worship a bit different from the comrades. Russ and his sons don't use psykers, they use wolf priests. And the Starks don't follow the Seven, they follow the old gods. Now Russ's Viking-inspired part is a little off from the Starks, to be sure, but I just take it as Russ fitting more in with the historical Starks of, say, the Age of Heroes, rather than the current day civilized Starks. Heck, maybe Russ is the last hero himself. I kind of saw this one coming. You know, you have the Space Wolves and then you have the Wolf-associated House of Stark. Though, I think there's a bit of a misconception about what the Starks and the Northerners in general are actually like. You know, the Northerners are not really that honorable, and neither are the Starks historically. They do not have this culture of knighthood, which is where a lot of these ideas of honor come from in the South, which is tied to the faith of the Seven. There's hardly any knights in the North because knighthood is not a thing that is valued in the North. And Ned Stark in particular, his sense of honor comes from Jon Arryn. It's not a Stark trait. If anything, it's just a trait of Jon Arryn that he instilled on Ned Stark when he was warded in the Vale. And now we have Rogal Dorn and House Lannister. Rogal Dorn, clad in ornate golden armor and a large red cloak, is the very image of a Lannister lord. Looks aside, I just get a very Tywin Lannister vibe from Dorn. He's got that stern, pragmatic, and brilliant feel to him, but also an edge of ruthlessness. Rogal Dorn, of course, like Perturabo, is a master of siege warfare and building of great defenses. Likewise, the Lannisters are known for Casterly Rock, their great fortress, though they did not build it. Dorn was of course put in charge of the defenses of Terra during the heresy, and acted as almost a regent in organizing the defense of the capital. Likewise, several recent Lannisters have found themselves acting as hands of the king and defending the capital against attack. Often the attackers are followers of some new strange religion. Yeah, I don't really know about this one, boys. I don't know enough about Rogal Dorn to know if this is accurate, and I'm guessing this is kind of a general understanding of what he's like because the description of House Lannister and how they're linking it to him is a little flimsy. And now we have another one that is no surprise to me, Konrad Curze and House Bolton. Konrad Curze was a master of terror tactics and trickery, known for his brutal style and attacks. House Bolton, meanwhile, are known for being masters of terror tactics and trickery, and are known for their brutal style. It's a match made in the seven hells. I think we can all see Curze taking part in some flaying. Like the Boltons, Curze is at first able to fit with the good guys and seems loyal. However, when he changes sides and betrays his rightful lord, I don't think anyone was really surprised. We probably should have guessed that the mass murdering psycho and the guys with flayed people on their flags might not be good inside. Back when the Boltons ruled as the Red Kings, they were extremely brutal. They still are today, in the story anyway. They flay people, they do wear skin, they make pavilions out of the people they flay. And like the Blood Angels, the Night Lords are also vampire coded, which the Boltons also are vampire coded. So I do think this is a good match. And now we have Sanguinius with House Dane, a desert warrior from a harsh land who grew up into a beautiful, regal warrior of unsurpassed skill. Sanguinius would fit right in with House Dane. House Dane comes from the Red Mountains on the edge of Dawn, a hot and desert region, not unlike Sanguinius' homeworld of Balsecadus. Even the name of the place he was found, Angel's Fall, echoes the name of House Dane's seat, Starfall. The Danes are generally considered some of the noblest and most inspirational nobles in Westeros. They have many blonde or even silver-haired members, which fits Sanguinius' look. It would also be pretty easy to see Sanguinius bearing the title of Sword of the Morning. I like this connection. I also think Sanguinius and Arthur Dayne are kind of similar, where he sides with House Targaryen against a rebellion and gives his life in his duty to the king, which is very similar to Sanguinius dying for the Emperor at the hands of Horus during the Horus Heresy. And I do think Sanguinius would be considered skilled and honorable enough to be the Sword of the Morning, so there's that as well. And now we have Ferrus Manus with House Baratheon of Storm's End. Ferrus Manus was kind of the hard one for me, but I think House Baratheon of Storm's End makes a good fit for him. Manus is stubborn and extremely loyal. This seems to fit really well with the traits of House Baratheon. In addition, he often uses a warhammer or a thunderhammer in combat, which is a favored weapon of the Baratheon lords. A thunderhammer is even more fitting. It combines hammers and storms. Orys Baratheon, the first lord of the house, was known as Orys One Hand after a rebel cut off his sword hand. So there's a hand connection there. He was also the first hand of the king, all kind of hand connections. Lastly, the most recent lord of the house, Renly, met his end at his brother's hand, though dark magic was also at play. I think Ferrus Manus could relate to that. Again, you know, kind of a decent connection. I'm not too knowledgeable about Ferrus Manus, but him being loyal to the Emperor during the heresy is similar to Roboute Baratheon siding with Jaehaerys Targaryen, proclaiming him the real king over Maegor the Cruel. Now we have Angron and House Clegane. A brute of great rage and power, but incredibly destructive on the battlefield. Angron seems like he would be right at home in House Clegane. There are in fact only 2 famous members of House Clegane. Both are known for their battle fury and prowess, and both seem mainly driven by rage. Sandor the Hound is also motivated by a tragic past, which Angron might in fact understand. However, it is his brother, the Mountain, who Angron most resembles. Both are driven by a bloodlust and berserk rage to seek out battle and live for little else. Both are deployed by their masters when a high level of brutality is needed. Both also end up losing their very humanity, being turned into beings of pure murder. Add to that the fact that Angron's legion, the World Eaters, were once known as the Warhounds, echoing Clegane's coat of arms, and it's a good fit. The only thing I really have to say about this is what drives the Mountain is gold and drugs, not really a bloodlust or desire for battle. Like, he's a milk of the poppy addict, he's a drug addict. And now I have one that I'm kind of questioning a little, Roboute Guilliman for House Tyrell. Guilliman is unique among the Primarchs as he sees himself as more than a warrior or soldier, but more of a builder and creator of civilizations. He doesn't lack martial prowess, though he is not the most powerful of the brother Primarchs, but it's not really his main focus. Likewise, House Tyrell, which puts out many fine knights, such as Loras Tyrell, is more interested in growing and prospering, both their people and wealth. Their domain, the Reach, is the most populous of the 7 kingdoms and the breadbasket of the realm. Likewise, Guilliman's realm of Ultramar is larger and more populous than the domains of other Primarchs and contains many garden worlds. I think Guilliman would admire the Tyrell words of growing strong. On a darker note, the Tyrells originally served as stewards and regents of House Gardener of Highgarden before eventually supplanting them. Likewise, Guilliman is currently regent of the Imperium and some fear might one day supplant his father. I kinda get where they're coming at from this, but I honestly think something like House Hightower would be better fitting for Guilliman. And I'd argue that House Tyrell is one of the most powerful houses in the realm, given that they have like the largest army, because the Reach is the most populous place. And up next is Mortarion for House Greyjoy. Like House Greyjoy, the Primarch Mortarion ended up worshipping a death god. More than that though, Mortarion, of all the fallen Primarchs, always seemed the most trapped in a Cthulhu story, something which the Greyjoys could relate to. Both are tied both closely to death and the strength one can gain from death. The Greyjoys also carry the title Lord Reaper, which Mortarion would totally be down with, and have married into House Harlaw, whose coat of arms is a scythe. Mortarion too seems married to a scythe. Lastly, I feel Mortarion and Euron Greyjoy have a lot in common. I see where they're coming from here, and I'm not really sure what other house you could link Mortarion to other than House Greyjoy. And if you want to get into it a little bit, the Ironborn do have what are called thralls, which are basically slaves or servants, but you could see another way of looking at that as they are kind of like undead people. Or the original thralls were actually undead, drowned people that they brought back to life because they do have the drowning practice still. What is dead may never die but rises again, harder and stronger, that sort of thing. Now we have Magnus the Red for House Hightower. Lord Leighton Hightower, current Lord of House Hightower, has spent the last 10 years closeted in the top of his massive tower studying magic texts and practicing sorcery. Now tell me that doesn't sound like something Magnus the Red would be all about. Overall, House Hightower is an old and powerful house. Rather than being about war, they are about trade and knowledge. They control Old Town and the Citadel, the major center of learning in the 7 kingdoms. They also are very into magic, and through the Citadel, control the only organized study of magic in the West. This is 100% the place Magnus would be. You know, fair enough, looking at House Hightower as more magical and knowledge-based, I do agree that Magnus would be a good fit. House Hightower are Targaryen loyalists, so when I was saying Guilliman would be a good fit for that, I was just coming from the fact that he's loyal to the Emperor, though House Tyrell are also Targaryen loyalists, so I don't think it really matters. And up next, Horus Lupercal and House Blackfire. House Blackfire was founded by Daemon Blackfire, a bastard of the King Aegon IV Targaryen. Upon his death, Aegon legitimized Daemon and gave him the ancestral sword of House Targaryen, Blackfire. Daemon felt that his father had loved him above his brothers, and that the gift of the sword proved he should rule. He eventually turned on his brother, declaring him a false king, and rose in a rebellion that split the realm. Daemon was eventually killed, but his sons fled into exile. Over the next several decades, the Blackfires would lead several invasions. Black Crusades, you could say, of the Seven Kingdoms, that were all beaten back, with the last being led by Melees the Monstrous, a large mutant man. Look, I don't think I really need to say why this story not only fits Horus well, but seems to fit all his sons in the Black Legion. I kind of get that. I don't think there's really any specific rebellion in Westeros that you could directly tie to something like the Horus Heresy. There's elements of each rebellion that are similar to the heresy, but not any of them that really come close to what the heresy was about or what happened. And I feel like there's plenty of ways you could link Horus to the houses of Stark and Baratheon as well. But I guess Blackfire is a pretty decent fit for Horus. And now we have Lorgar Aurelian with House Baratheon of Dragonstone. House Baratheon of Dragonstone has a short history so far, with only one lord, Stannis. Yet it feels like a good match for Lorgar. In both cases, after feeling rejected by family, they turn to the worship of a new dark god. Through sacrifice and suffering, they gain access to dark powers and work to spread the worship of the foreign god among their people. In addition, both Lorgar and Stannis are bold, and both are widely considered to be pawns under the control of their high sorcerer. Fair enough, you know, this is also a pretty good match, though I feel like R'hllor, the red god, is not actually a dark god. It just seems that way because Melisandre is a shadowbinder who does dark magic. That is separate from the fire god, but whatever. And up next we have Vulkan with House Dondarrion and the Valyrian Freehold. Vulkan is special, so he gets 2. I don't really think any house fits Vulkan that well, but if I had to pick one, I'd go for House Dondarrion. They aren't really known for a whole ton. Their main claim to fame, however, is their last lord Beric. Died a whole ton and kept coming back to life. As a perpetual, this fits Vulkan. However, I think the best fit for him really is the old Valyrian Freehold. This was a land of fire and volcanoes, ruled by massive lizards, and home to some of the finest craftsmen and metalworkers in the world. Vulkan would fit right at home. Absolutely not. He would not fit right in the Valyrian Freehold. If anything, he would kill every single person there. You know, that empire is one built on blood magic and slavery. I really don't see him putting up with any of that. Especially if killing innocent people is used to craft Valyrian steel, which it very well might be. Sacrificing infant children, to be specific. I honestly think Vulkan would be a good fit for the Night's Watch. Guarding the realms of men. You know, that seems like something he'd be about. And of course, Corvus Corax with House Blackwood. Corvus Corax is the master of the Raven Guard and all about Raven stuff. House Blackwood has its seat at Raven Tree Hall and is all about Raven stuff. It's a match made in heaven. And that's all you really need to say about that match. I think it is perfect. And last we have Alpharius Omegon with House Frey. Okay, bear with me on this one. Alpharius could have fit in a few places, such as the Faceless Men. However, if there is a house that works, I think it's House Frey. While House Frey can field plenty of troops, they are a house that's mostly gained power through cunning and guile, traits Alpharius would appreciate. There are also a lot of Freys that all look alike, and no one, not even their lord, can keep them all straight. Sound familiar? The Freys are also a tricky house. You can never really be sure whose side they're on, and they're willing to switch sides as needed and carry on convoluted long-term plans. Lastly, they do have the twins, something that would certainly speak to Alpharius Omegon. I think it all fits. I do think the Faceless Men would have been a better fit than House Frey, but if you want to tie to a Westerosi house, might as well be House Frey. I understand their reasoning, and I don't really have much else to add. And that is the Primarchs and which houses they would belong to in Game of Thrones. If you made it this far, thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.